Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, June the 11th, 2024. It is currently 9:15 p.m. Central Time, and I am coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, have you ever been listening to a sermon and all of a sudden the pastor says something and you just immediately okay, stop it, time out. I don't care what is said after this. Wait a minute. What did he just say? You literally, you're listening to it on your phone or a tablet or on a computer and you just pause. Now, if you're there in person, I don't know what you do. Maybe you're at just that moment. All you can do is wait, what did he just say? What did he just say? And all you can think about is what he just said, and you may even have problems hearing what he's saying over the next 2 or 3 minutes because you can't get over what was just said. Now, maybe sometimes, if you're listening to it live, 2, 3, 4 minutes later, they come in and correct it, and you realize that they just misspoke, or they explain it, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But initially, you were just absolutely shocked. And sometimes, when you're listening, say, on demand with a phone or a tablet, you just hit pause, and you're like, wait a minute, there's just no way. There's no way they could have said that. So you may back it up, listen to it again, hit pause, going, no, let me listen to that again. And you listen to it 3 or 4 times, you're like, wait, that's what he said. And then you're like, okay. And then you listen to the rest to find out if that's what they meant or if they just misspoke or they explain it. And in either case, whether you're listening to it live or whether you're listening to it on demand, have you ever experienced one of those just what in the world was that? There's no way they just said that. Now, I don't know how many times that's happened to you. There's probably, I would hate to say it, I think in some ways, if I'm being honest, I've had to experience that far more than I want to say. I hate to say that's happened probably more than I want to even admit, because what you would like to say is every time you listen to preaching, it's wonderful, it's great, it's edifying, it's amazing, there's never any incorrect doctrine. You would like to be able to say that, but I think if you're honest with yourself, I guess it really depends on how much preaching you actually listen to, how many sermons you actually listen to. I think the more you listen to, the more you find yourself at times going, whoa, wait, what was that? No, wait, back that up. What was that? Well, that happened to me today. Let me explain what was going on. I was going to have to go somewhere. So I grabbed my iPad, opened up the Sermons 2.0 app, and I just immediately started downloading so that I would have it on my iPad so that I could listen wherever I was going. I could be since I can't be here, I'm going to try to listen to as many sermons as I can to make good use of my time. So I started downloading sermons. And all of a sudden I stumbled upon a sermon that was a part of a series. And the series was entitled Preaching Conference 2024. Preaching Conference 2024. Now, one of my favorite things about the Sermons 2.0 app is I love whenever I see, someone's doing a conference. Either they're broadcasting it live or I stumble upon the conference and realize, I missed it live, but here's all of the messages. Because sometimes in preaching conferences, you can kind of see whether it's a preaching conference, Bible conference, any kind of conference, revival services, you sometimes kind of get an idea when the more you listen to what churches are emphasizing. If it's a youth conference, that's okay. This is what the church thinks the youth in 2024 needs to hear. Or if it's a men's conference, women's conference, whatever it is, you can kind of get a feel what that church or that particular denomination or that group really think is important. So I love trying to listen to them. Now, I've always got a million other things that I want to do, need to do, so I don't always get around to them. But today I was like, preaching conference. All right. So let me give you all the information. This preaching conference was held by Bethel Baptist Church. So if you look up Bethel Baptist Church on the Sermons 2.0 app, the pastor of the church is Dr. Rick Savage. It's located in Jackson, Tennessee. and it says, welcome to our church. They have a kind of a welcome video. And then it says about us and the heart of Madison County, West Tennessee, you will find Bethel Baptist Church, a fundamental, independent, Bible-believing Baptist church that has a desire to worship God and has a heart for people. Bethel Baptist Church is established in Jackson, Tennessee, nestled in the center of West Tennessee between Nashville and Memphis. Jackson and Madison County offer a beautiful landscape, abundance of recreational opportunities, and close proximity to great dining and shopping. Jackson is a vibrant city that serves as the retail hub for 13 surrounding counties. Now, I have been somewhere around that area. I know I definitely have driven through that area in my trips to Tennessee in the past. So I probably have been somewhere near that area. But I don't know much about the church. So I'm like, okay, well, they're holding a preaching conference. So I clicked on the service preaching conference, and I just started downloading the messages. The first one, starting from the top going down, it may actually the first one may have been the one at the bottom. But okay, starting at the top, the praying Savior and panicked disciples. The praying Savior and panicked disciples from Mark 6:45-52. Well, that sounds interesting. All right. What kept Jesus on the cross? All right. Mike Allison. All right. Oh, that could be interesting. The example of Rahab, Joshua chapter 2 by Dr. Alton Bill. All right. Next, the great importance of the fear of God. The great importance of the fear of God. And I'm like, oh, there it is. That's the one. I need to listen to that one because that's what we're spending all week about. So I made sure I downloaded that one. But then the very next one is entitled God is In by Dr. Shelton Smith. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Dr. Shelton Smith. He's the editor of the Sword of the Lord newspaper. Oh, he has a Monday through Friday podcast. It's about 15 minutes long. Okay. Well, you know, I'm a subscriber to the Sword of the Lord newspaper. I listen to his podcast. Okay. Hey, you know what? I want to listen to the great importance of the fear of God, but I'm going to be driving. So I'm not going to be able to take notes or anything. And that one would be perfect to do a review. So let me just go with God is In by Dr. Shelton Smith, because he also does the next three: The Marks of a Good Man by Dr. Shelton Smith, Heart-Probing Questions of Jesus, Dr. Shelton Smith, and then A Very Good Man in a Very Bad World, Dr. Shelton Smith. And I'm like, wow, okay. He preached a lot at this conference. I'm like, okay, so let me just go to God is In, because that's the first one. If I'm starting at the top that's the first one that he preaches, at least in that order. Most likely he started the conference at the bottom and then went up. I don't know if there's any more of the conference going on. Maybe they only had a total of 8 sermons. I don't know anything about the conference. So, and then some of these, sometimes what I wish is for the churches that do conferences and you post them online, always have like for the first message for the conference, have someone like, because I know a lot of times the recordings start with the person preaching, but have someone just, do a welcoming and have that recorded for your on-demand sermon, or so that you can explain, here's this conference has been going on for 5 or 10 years. Here's the theme of this year's conference, or here's what we're hoping to accomplish, because the listeners can have a little bit more insight. If I don't have that, I just know, oh, it's a preaching conference. Well, was there a theme? Was it like, what was the goal? So a lot of times that's kind of left out. But either way, I love when the conferences are there because it gives me some insight. So I was all excited. Dr. Shelton Smith, God is In. All right, hit play. All right, so I hit play. I was driving down this kind of just a normal kind of pedestrian street in the city of Abilene. And then at first I kind of went under the underpass thinking I was getting on the highway, and I ended up getting on the highway going the wrong way. So then I had to take the next exit, go back around, and then find the actual turn to get on the freeway to go the right way back to my house. So it was when I finally got back on the kind of the access road to get back on the on-ramp, right when I was getting back off the freeway, back on the exit ramp, going back under to try to find the right way to get back on the on-ramp going the right direction. It's a really weird section of Abilene. Like, it's all weird how you have to get on the freeway. You would have to see it to understand it. Even though I've lived here my whole life, I still ended up going past where I needed to turn, right? Because where you think you would turn, you actually have to go the opposite direction. It's all weird. Needless to say, I'm sitting there listening to this sermon like, okay. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Shelton Smith says something, and I'm like, wait. He did not just say that. And I immediately reached over, hit pause. I hit pause on the iPad. I was like, leave it right there. I don't want to hear anything else. Because what I'm going to do is save this, and then I'm going to play it for everyone. Now, if you were listening to the sermon, when we get to the spot, it would be interesting to know if you would have hit pause yourself, or if you would have just been like, what? Or you would have just been like, whatever, and keep going. I don't know how you would have reacted, but I immediately hit stop. I'm like, no. So, but then I thought, well, did I hear that right? So about, 5-10 minutes ago, I backed it up and listened to it. I'm like, nope, that's what he said. There's no way he meant that. I know he didn't mean that. He had to misspeak. Or he did. There's just no way. There's no way he could have meant that. So here's what I'm doing. I'm starting it from the beginning. I'm going to play it up to the spot. Now, I'll probably interrupt, offer my own thoughts, right up till the spot where he says it. Then I'm going to stop, see if it bothers you, or if you would be concerned. Maybe you wouldn't even be bothered or concerned. Then we're going to find out what he meant. Is he going to explain it? Is he going to articulate? Is he going to say it again and then say it the correct way? Because look, there's a lot of times I'll get an email and someone say, you said this at the 7-minute mark. And I'll be like, wait, what? And I'll go back and go, oh no, what was I thinking? And then I'll keep listening. I'm like, yeah, okay, I did say that, and there's no excuse for that. But 2 minutes later, I stated it again the correct way. So I do understand your concern, but I always, if I feel like if I catch myself, I always try to correct it. But whenever you're speaking live, I mean, you can stumble over your words. I have in the beginning of this. You can start thinking you're going to say this, and then you kind of change your direction right in the middle. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can say. Sometimes you can say something that's just completely theologically wrong, and you didn't mean it that way. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't really mean this, and that he's going to correct it. Now, you may agree with, maybe we find out he did not misspeak. This is what he really means. You may agree with him. That's perfectly okay. I'm going to hold on and disagree. If he wasn't misspeaking and that's what he really believes, I hope the entire sermon then is dedicated to explaining his theological position, because ladies and gentlemen, I have questions, okay? But are you ready? Are you ready? So this is what we'll do. We'll pretend you're in the car with me. Okay. You're in the car with me. All right. It's got to be like a big car. It's got to have a lot of room for everyone. Okay. So everyone's in there. Okay. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, pause. And you're like, no. Everybody in the back seat's like, no, keep going. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to find out if did I overreact? Did I pause it when I shouldn't have? Or if I would have just listened a little bit longer, would it all be no big deal? Now, I just like to always, when I'm listening to something, my favorite thing is I don't like to listen to it just I'm sitting here in the studio listening to it by myself. Why not turn on the microphone and just listening to it with everyone else, right? So again, I don't know if he agrees with what he said, if he misspoke, if it was just a mistake, if he's going to correct. I have no idea what's going to happen after it. So again, I know I think so many people so misunderstand the sermon reviews. Anytime I do a review, we're always reviewing that which I have not heard. Now, the first part of this I have heard, and I've made that transparent. Everything else I haven't heard. So if I'm critical of it, people can get mad at me, but I'm just listening to a sermon offering. It's so weird. People will email me and say, you're being critical, or they're being critical of me. I'm like, well, if you can be critical of me, why can't I be critical of someone else? So you can't criticize me being critical when you're being critical of me, because either being critical is wrong all the time, or is it right sometimes? The point is whenever you listen to preaching, everyone makes some kind of judgment, whether you agree or disagree. Now, you may disagree or you may agree. The thing is, you're not attacking the person, you're attacking the concept. So here's how I'm going to state it. He's going to make a comment. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. And so we're going to listen to find out if that's what he really means, or did he just simply misspeak? And this turns into be nothing. But we'll find out together, so that'll be fun. If he does mean it, then I'm going to state it. That's his hypotheses. And then we're going to take that hypothesis, and then we will work on it. We'll work on it initially in my review in real time. I'll offer my possible critique, or maybe I just pose it as a question for you to figure out. And then we'll probably address it later on. So again, it's not even going to be about, look, I've told everyone to subscribe to the Sword of the Lord. Last summer, we reviewed the Sword of the Lord conference. We'll probably do the same thing this year. I'm telling everyone to go find this preaching conference on the Sermons 2.0 app and listen to all of it. By no means am I telling you not to listen. I'm just saying that, hey, he put forth a hypothesis. At least I'm going to assume first that he misspoke. Then if I find out that he didn't, then that's his hypothesis, and then we'll challenge the hypotheses. We'll criticize the hypotheses. We will criticize the doctrinal position without criticizing the person. All right? That seems like, I don't know why why is that controversial? People have been doing that someone writes a book, you read the book, you agree or disagree with the hypotheses, you disagree with their thesis, you challenge it. That's what we do. We've been doing that in theology since the beginning of theology. It's all in the Bible. This person states this. Well, if that person's a false teacher, and that person's a false prophet, this is a false priest, this is truth, this is falsehood. That's what happens. So I don't know why that's controversial, but I feel like now I have to explain myself 150 different ways because I don't know. I think well, put it this way. It should be clear to anyone who actually listens to this podcast exactly what I'm doing. Sadly, some people don't seem to understand that. All right. But let's forget all of those people who don't like it. They can go find something else to listen to. There's a million of other options. Please enjoy yourself. If you can't find the podcast to your liking, by all means, I'm serious. Email me and I'll help you find the one that will make you happy. All right. No use being unhappy with me. Go find someone else who will make you happy. All right. You're not stuck with me. You've got options. Okay. So, but for everyone else, are you ready? Thinking caps on. We're going to be in Psalm 77, so you may want to open your Bibles. Here we go. This was this was at least published on, I think, June the 3rd, 2024. Again, from Preaching Conference 2024, Bethel Baptist Church. Look it up, Preaching Conference 2024. I've given you the name of the people preaching and the name of the sermons. You should be able to find it. And look, you want to make one of the sermons you want to make a priority, the great importance of the fear of God. That helps you fulfill one of the assignments I gave you for our Fear of the Lord focus this week. So right there, you get to hear a part of the conference, and you get to hear a sermon that relates to our topic. It's a win-win, okay? In the meantime, this is extra content, free of charge, right? Because you know how I charge for all of our content. All right, I'm joking. All right, here we go. Are you ready? Let's enjoy.
Thank you, Alice, so very, very much. Nicely done. Take your Bible, please, and turn to Psalm number 77. Psalm number 77 is my text tonight. I appreciate all the hospitality that's been extended to me, as has always been the case through the years when I've been here at Pastor's invitation. And certainly he and Miss Debbie have kept me taken care of. They've put some goodies, had the goodies put in the room, so I had a lot of health food to work with, and some of it was healthy, and at the same time he's fed me well, kept me fed, and I appreciate all of that so very, very much, and appreciate the friendship of all of you. God bless you for coming. A good bunch of you were here yesterday, and the crowd looks pretty good tonight as well, and so thank you for coming. It's my joy and privilege to be able to preach with Brother Allison once in a while. And I told them, Brother Allison, I think Betty's probably made this clear to you, but she's watching where the camera is. But my wife has said over and over again, among her favorites, in fact, one of her big favorites is Brother Allison. And I understand that because I love to hear him as well. Now, I did have one little problem. Pastor, last night made that peanut butter and jelly introduction type thing, and I'm sitting over here saying to myself, which am I? I was trying to figure out where I fit into that equation.
Now, if anyone finds the message where there's the peanut butter jelly introduction, and Dr. Shelton Smith was trying to figure out which one was he, peanut butter or jelly, if I can say it correctly. I'm interested in that introduction. Which sermon has the peanut butter and jelly introduction, and what was that peanut butter and jelly introduction about? What was the point of that introduction? And is he making an illustration that we're either peanut butter or jelly? Like, what does that even mean? I've got to find it. I haven't had a chance today to look it up, but if you find it first, then let me know. Just send me a summary. The peanut butter and jelly illustration is this. And this is what determines if you're peanut butter, and this determines if you're jelly. Was it something to be humorous? Was it something funny? Was it a joke? Or was it something spiritual? Now, in a lot of conferences, you're kind of, people follow a template. If you listen to conference speaking, right, you always open up with, thank you for your hospitality. Thank you to everyone here. It's been amazing. You've all been wonderful. You've been great. You do that. You endear yourself to the audience and to the people who, invited you there, because you want to do that. So you'll be invited back to more conferences. Okay. I mean, come on, there is a little bit of a selfish motivation to do that. Typically you then start with a joke to break the ice and kind of get everyone laughing and feeling comfortable, and because you're the guest speaker, and then you launch into your message. Now, some forego those pleasantries and just jump right in. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's a template that's there. But I'm interested. Peanut butter and jelly. What is that introduction? Someone's got to find it. You've got to find it before me. All right, so let me know. All right, here we go.
And I don't know. I think I'm afraid to ask. But anyway, that was clever, and I liked it. But anyway, Psalm 77. I'm going to get up and get going here. And Brother Allison will be along in a few minutes, and you're going to love what he does as well. Psalm 77, and I'm going to read a good little bit of this here because I want you to get the picture. Top of the chapter, verse 1. I cried unto God with my voice, even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear unto me. In the day of my trouble I sought the Lord. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God and was troubled. I complained, and my spirit was overwhelmed.
Now, that's an interesting phrase right there. Now, he doesn't mention this. It just jumped out at me today because when I was listening to it, I was in the car. And that's always the difficulty when you're in a car. You can't sometimes be looking at the text. But right there, that's Psalm 77, verse 3. I remembered God and was troubled. I remembered God and was troubled. When does your remembrance of God, when does your memory of God make you troubled? What does it mean by troubled? Is there a different translation? So Psalm 77:3, like if I was listening to this sermon and I was there, I was in the church, I was at this preaching conference, I would immediately wrote Psalm 77:3, and I would have put a question mark, and I would have written something really fast like look up later, research later, study later, what is going on here? Why is he troubled? I would have put a quick note. I wouldn't have started looking any cross references up or looking anything else up because I want to get back to listening. But I would want to put something down on paper as fast as I could so that I could remember. That is fascinating to me. Like, I remembered God and I was troubled. Not I remembered God and I found peace. I remembered God and I was comforted. I remembered God and I was happy. Now I remembered God and I was troubled. Like, now is there something with the Hebrew there? Now I'm looking at the New King James. He's reading the King James. So those are the same. Well, we could look it up, but then we're going to get off track, right? Or I'm going to get off track. You're just following wherever I go. So I guess you wouldn't technically be off track. Well, you'd be following me off into the wilderness somewhere. Who knows? And we'd fall off the edge of a cliff. We got to stay focused because we got to get to that point in the sermon where I was like, Like I'm driving the car and I'm like, pause, stop it right here, all right? Like, well, it'll be interesting if you know when I paused it. We could put money down. Can you predict when I was listening to this sermon exactly when I hit pause because I was like, wait, what did he just say?
And then you got that Selah word, which basically says, consider this or think of that. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I've considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I commune with mine own heart, and my spirit made diligent search. Will the Lord cast off forever? Will he be favorable no more? Is his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Hath God forgotten to be gracious? Hath he in anger shut up his tender mercies? Now, all 9 of these verses are really kind of a litany of complaints, statements of doubt, hesitation. I mean, things are going haywire. What's going on here? Basically, is what he's asking. Verse 10, and I said, this is my infirmity, but I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember thy work, thy wonders of old. I will meditate also of all thy work and talk of thy doings. Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? Thou art the God that doest wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength among the people. Thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. The waters saw thee, O God. The waters saw thee. They were afraid. The depths also were troubled. The clouds poured out our water. The skies sent out a sound. Thine arrows also went abroad. The voice of thy thunder was in the heaven. The lightnings lightened the world. The earth trembled and shook. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. Now, 5 times in that chapter, the little preposition in, I-N, is just kind of tucked in there and not without significance. And let me illustrate it like this.
Okay, so 5 times we have the word in. N-I-N. All right, let's see if we can find them, all right? I cry. Oh, now, hang on. He's using the King James. All right, I'm using the New King James. Let me grab a King James. Here we go. I got one right here. All right, let me open up the Psalm 77. Let's see if we can find them. All right. And he says that this is not without significance, that this is a significant thing, that this is used 5 times. In fact, he's going to build his whole sermon on it. It's called God is in, I-N. All right. So he's building his whole sermon on the 5 times that this is used. All right. So this is fascinating to me. Now, when I was driving the car, I didn't have a chance to look. Right there when he was reading it, I was trying to look because I knew this part because I heard this part. So, but this is not where I stopped it. This is not where I stopped it. When I was driving the car, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to go home and look those up. So now let's look them up. Are you ready? Here we go. So I cried unto God with my voice, even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear unto me. All right. So we don't have any in verse 1. Verse 2. In the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. So there's one use of in, but it's not talking about God is in, just as in the day of my trouble. But all right, so there's in. I sought the Lord. My sore ran in the night. Well, it's in the night. So in the day and in the night, there's twice. So in the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. My sore ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. So it's used twice in verse 2, one in the day of my trouble and in the night. So let's go to verse 3. I remembered God and was troubled. I complained at my spirit, and my spirit was overwhelmed. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. So we don't have it. So hang on. We don't have it in verse 1. We don't have it in verse 3. We don't have it in verse 4. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient. We don't have it in verse 5. Let me read that correctly. I've considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. All right, so there's the third use of in the day, in the night, and then in the night is repeated again in verse 6. So there's 3 times. I commune with my own heart, and my spirit made diligent search. Will the Lord cast off forever, and will he be favorable no more? Is his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? All right, so we don't have it in those verses. Verse 9, hath God forgotten to be gracious? Hath he in anger shut up tender mercies? There's the 4th one. All right, so let's go through these. Verse 2, in the day of my trouble, in the night. Then we have, the next one is in verse 6, in the night. So we have in the day of trouble, in the night, and now we have in anger. Hath he in anger? All right, so let's go through them again. Let's see, let's count these, or let's put these down. In the day of my trouble, there's number 1. In the night, number 2, and then number 3 is in the night in verse 6, and then in anger is number 4. So we just need one more. We need one more. And I said, this is my infirmity. This is verse 10. But I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. I will meditate also of thy work and talk of thy doings. Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. There's number 5. All right. So, and I don't see any more. Oh, wait. Verse 19, in the sea. There's in the sea, in great waters. So I know I see more. All right. So that would be 7. So I see 7 times, not 5 times, but none of them. Thy way is in the sea. Okay, God's way is in the sea. And thy paths in the great waters. I guess that could refer to in. But the whole sermon is called God is in. God is in. He's going to build his entire illustration on this concept that God is in. And it seems to be taken that he says 5 times in Psalm 77, in is used. All right, let's let him build that out. I'm a little perplexed now. Now I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused here. You can, and if I missed one, I apologize, but I don't want to go too long on that. Let's let him build this out. He's going to start by trying to explain the significance of in by giving us an illustration. And, well, you can tell me if this illustration seems to fit the way the word in is used in Psalm 77. I'm a little confused, but let's see if we can find it.
A number of years ago, while I was a pastor in Maryland, we had a young doctor, a medical doctor, showed up one Sunday, he and his family. And getting acquainted with him in the lobby on the way out, I said to him if it'd be acceptable to them, I'd like to stop by and see them sometime. He said, come by my office. And I said, well, you're a busy physician. I said, is that good? He said, I will make time. He said, you tell them when you come in. And he said, I'll post my office. They'll be expecting you. So on a day that week, I think it might have been a Tuesday or something, I went by. And I had 3 questions that I raised when I walked in. I said to the receptionist, I said, is the doctor in? Then I said, she said yes. And I said, well, is he available? Yes. And then I said, well, may I see him?
All right, so you can see how he's building the illustration. Is the doctor in? Is he available? And can I see him? All right, keep those 3 down, right? But is the doctor in? Is he available? And can I see him? What he's going to do, he's going to now flip that over to God. Is God in? Is he available? And can I see him? All right. So, but the doctor is in, God is in. The doctor is in, God is in. You can see where this is going to go. I mean, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but now does that fit Psalm 77 with the word in? Is Psalm 77 is God is in, God is available, and you can see him. Now, I think this is a clever opening illustration, and there's a part of me that really likes it. I just don't know if I can. Is God in? Is he available? And can I see him? Do I derive that from Psalm 77? Maybe you can. This is not where I paused the sermon, right? So this is just me now listening to it again going, just trying to get as much from this as possible. All right. This is, whenever you listen to a sermon, you want to get as much from it as possible. Even if you disagree with every bit of it, you still want to get as much from it as possible. So, all right, I almost want to, if I was in a hermeneutics class, I would tell, all right, class, here's what we're going to do. All right. In Psalm 77, we have the word in, I-N. It's used, I think we found maybe 7 times, 7 or 8 times. All right. And what I want you to do is I'm going to give you a opening sermon illustration. This doctor visited a church. The pastor's like, hey, can I stop by and see you? He's like, come by my office. So this doctor visited the church. The pastor's like, hey, can I visit you? The doctor said, come by my office. So when the pastor arrived at the doctor's office, he said, is the doctor in? Is he available? And can I see him? In this sermon, the pastor uses this as an illustration of God, that God is in, he's available, and we can see him. Can you derive that from the text of Psalm 77? And I would just then give that to the class and then leave and say, okay, guys, I'm back. Now, after about an hour, 2 hours, what did you find? What did you find? Let's see what he does with this. But this is clearly the direction he's going. I know I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit there, but here we go.
Yes. Now, all of that was contingent upon the fact that the doctor was in. Had he not been there, I could have chatted all day long, I could have waited all day long, and yet there would have been no exchange of conversation, nothing would have been accomplished. Now, whether it be me, the doctor, or one of you, we can't be everywhere. We can't do it all because we've got limits. But when I ask those same questions in reference to God, it's a different matter. When I ask the question, is God in? Yes, he's in. Night or day, he's in. I ask the second question, is he available? Oh, yes, he's always available. And then the question is, may I see him? Will he talk to me? Do I have access to him?
Now that's a pretty interesting opening illustration. I could probably do with something with that. Is God in? Is God in? God is in. Is he in? God is in. Yes. Is he available? And do I have access to him? Can I see him? All right. Now, I think it's more about, obviously we cannot see him, but do I have access to him? Okay. All right. I could probably look at some scriptures. Is God in? Or I could probably find some scripture saying God is in. He is forever. He was, is, and will forever be. Right? I could probably find some scriptures about the existence of God. God is in. Is God in? Yes, God is in. Is he available? All right. Okay. Well, is he available? All right, I could probably find some scriptures. Do I have access to him? Well, I have access to him through Jesus Christ. I probably could use those 3 points. And now I could come back to maybe a Bible study class and say, all right, class, here's these 3 concepts. Find scriptures that support each one. So if you want a little Bible study exercise, go find the scriptures that would say God is in, that would somehow support that concept. Is he available? Is God available? And can we see him, or do we have access to him? Find those scriptures. So maybe we could do something with that. But now we're getting really close to the point where, so at this point, I'm just listening. I'm driving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm listening. Okay. And now this is where I almost wrecked the car. Right? It's coming up really soon. Here we go.
And not only are all the questions answerable with yes, but the interesting thing is, he's really been expecting us. After all, in these days where you and I live, with all of the violence and all of the societal upheaval and expressions of hatred and cheating and all kinds of things to discourage us and alarming things going on. The question has to be raised. Can we in these days, can we be Christians like Christians ought to be? Can we have revival in these times? What about soul winning? What about all these things that are laid out in the Bible for us? Is all of that doable in 2024 in the United States of America? Is it possible? Now, I read this chapter and I discover some things. Number one, I discover that God was in history.
God was in history. All right. That I can see that. Like if you're using Psalm 77 to say God was in history, instead of really focusing on the word in, that whenever I open the Old Testament, God is in history, okay, we can verify that. In the beginning, God was in the beginning. God was in the garden. God was in the situation with God was here and God was here. God shows up over and over and over. God is in. Okay. All right. I can do something with that. All right. So far, that's actually a great point. God is in history. Okay. All right. He said that's number one. All right. Now I know trying to stop this and cutting him off, but I'm just trying to work our way through this. So just listen carefully, right? Because he's going to say the next thing really quick.
You look back, look to the days of the past, and God was there. Now, God does not control everything.
That's where I almost wrecked the car. God does not control everything. There are things God doesn't control. Now, I am saying that he just misspoke. And clearly there's no way he believes God isn't in control of everything. Now, maybe he does, but I'm going to at least give him the benefit of the doubt because typically as Christians, we believe God is sovereign. He is in control of all things. Now, I know for some, we don't like that because if God is in control of all things, that raises some serious questions about the bad things that happen. So maybe if you say God is not in control of all things, then you get God off the hook. Hey, this happened. Well, God is not in control of that. God is not in control of that. But if God is not in control of it, then is God God? Can you be God and not in control? If those things that God does not control, are they then not a God in and of themselves? And why doesn't God control them? Because he just chooses not to control. Well, how many things has God chosen not to control? Now, for you, let's just throw this out as a theological question. Does it make it easier for you to believe God is in control of all things? Or does that lead you to some major philosophical problems that you just cannot handle? Or does it make you feel better that God isn't in control of all things? Or does that lead you to philosophical problems that you can't handle? Do you believe God is in control of all things? And if so, how do you handle the philosophical problems that's going to arise from that position? Or do you believe God is not in control of all things? And how do you handle the philosophical problems that arise from that position? What position are you in? Are you on the side of God is in control of all things? And this is how I handle the philosophical problems. Or are you on team, God is not in control of all things, and this is how you handle those problems? Which one are you on? Now, I'm going to go with the idea that I just don't think there's no way he means that, right? God is not in control of all things? If God is not in control of all things, what would be the point of even praying? Like, I would need a list of all the things God doesn't control, and then there's no point in praying, right? If God doesn't have control, can he do anything about it? And you say, well, he could do something about it, but he just chooses not to do something about it. Well, if God's have chosen not to do certain things in these areas he's not controlling, then there's no point in praying about that, which would make it a lot easier to limit what you're praying about. Hey, guys, no. I know it's Wednesday night prayer meeting. Don't pray about those things. God is not in control of those things, nor is he going to exercise control over those things until a specific time. Well, then there's no point in praying about it, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you believe that man's will is the ultimate the ultimate thing that determines whether someone is going to be saved or not, it is the individual's will, and God does not control that will, and he allows that will to be truly free, then there's no point in praying for someone's salvation. Because if God is going to get involved in trying to get someone saved, then he's placing influence upon their will. That's not a free will. You got to, if that will is free, you got to let them choose, right? You can't have God getting involved in it, right? He's got to respect that free will. So is God in control or not in control? Now that caught me off guard. That's where I hit pause. I have not heard a second after that. I immediately just stopped I didn't stop the car. I hit pause and just kept driving Finally got on the right highway. Drove, got home. I'm like, okay. And then I had a million things to do. And then it's been crazy all day. So I have not had a chance to listen to the rest. Now we're at 45 minutes. I think we should just stop and you go figure it out. No. I've got to hear a little bit more to at least determine, is he going to clarify this in any way, shape, or form? I think we're going to know in the next few minutes, right? So, all right. So there we go. God is in history. God does not control all things.
And he does not cause everything that goes on.
God does not control all things, and he does not cause all things to occur. So so this seems to me that he's doubling down. He's not correcting it. Hey, God does not control all things, and he does not cause all things. Now, this would go greatly against, say, the London Baptist Confession of Faith. If you read the chapters on God's eternal decrees, God's providence, I think you can look up those chapters in the London Baptist Confession of Faith, 1689. You should be able to find the same chapters in the Westminster Confession of Faith. You can look at them. Now, you may be on the team that God does not control and God does not cause all things. God does not control, God does not cause. So you're removing God greatly from what's happening. Now, that may work for you philosophically. Yeah, I can understand. Look, there's a part of me that can understand this. Look, you look around at the world. Obviously, it may make it a little easier from a theological perspective to go, well, obviously God is not controlling all things. The world seems out of control. This has happened, or this happened to me. God obviously is not in control. And clearly God did not cause these horrible things to happen. So I'm going to remove God from it. But if you remove God from it, where are you left? What are the implications of saying God is not in control and God does not cause all things? What are the implications? Because if God doesn't cause all things, he still has to be somehow involved, unless you're now going to say God does not know all things. But in the beginning, God, if he knows all things, well, then in a roundabout way, he knows exactly what's going to happen. So he's in control because if he allows it to happen, he's in control. All right. Now, if you say he's not in control, then it's not that he just doesn't allows it. He doesn't have any control. That would be really confusing. And he doesn't cause all things, but if he knew before he created what was going to happen, he created the very things that's going to cause it to happen. Then in some ways, you still have to bring it back to God, right? Let's see where this goes.
But he has, with premeditation and purpose, set an ultimate course for this world. It's going to come out the way he said it's going to come out.
Okay, wait a minute. Everything's going to turn out the way he wants it to turn out, but he doesn't control all things and he doesn't cause all things? With premeditation, he set everything on course, and it's going to turn out the way he wants it to turn out. Yet, he doesn't control all things, and he doesn't cause all things. Well, if he doesn't cause all things, how is it going to turn out the way he wants it to turn out unless he's controlling and causing? How can you say on one hand, God does not control and God does not cause, but he premeditated, set everything on course to turn out just the way he wants it to turn out? How can it turn out the way he wants to turn out unless he's controlling and causing? I am so baffled by this. I am. Okay. No, I'm glad I stopped the car. I'm glad I stopped the car because I probably would have wrecked it at that point. I don't even know, because now I don't get it. So God doesn't cause, God doesn't control, God doesn't cause all things, but yet he, with premeditation, set everything on course to end up exactly the way he wants it to end up. Is it going to end up just by chance, by luck? Just, oh, look at that. It just worked out the way I wanted to. I didn't control it and I didn't cause it. Then how does it end up the way God wants it if he's not controlling and he's not causing?
The king's hand is in the hand of the Lord. And you'd have to just study the nation of Israel a little bit to see that God has purpose there. And he has effected that every step of the way.
Wait. God has the king's heart in his hand? Just consider the nation of Israel. He affected it? Well, wait a minute. So does he control and does he cause? That sounds like causation. That sounds like he's causing something, right? That sounds like he's controlling something. So I don't get it. How can God not be controlling everything and not causing everything, yet they immediately go into he has the king's heart in his hand? And he's influencing what happened.
And if you and I here in the United States, if we look around, we have to acknowledge we have been blessed of God beyond calculation. We have been blessed. Now, I look into the pages of history, and I see very clearly God was in for Moses. He was in for Joshua.
Was God controlling and causing in the life of Moses and Joshua? Or those were the areas where he was controlling and was causing, but there's other areas he doesn't control or cause? Can we only say God caused and controlled what we read in Scripture, and everything else we have no idea if God's causing it, if God is in control? And if we don't know if God is causing or in control, then there's really no point in praying. Hey, God, I'm praying about this. I have no idea if you're in control of this. And I don't even know if you're causing it or not causing it. I don't know. I guess I could still pray about it. I guess
He was in for Elijah. He was in for John the Baptist. He was in for Isaiah. He was in for Paul. We get a little closer to home. He was in for Moody. He was in for John Rice. And he's in for us. He's here. And yes, we can see him very clearly in history. Now, you look at verses 12 and 13, and that tells me that God is in today as well. He said, I will meditate of all thy work and talk of thy doings. Sounds to me like present tense stuff. God is in today.
That had been present tense stuff for the psalmist. I will meditate also of all thy work and talk of thy doings. That sounds present tense. To the one writing the psalm. Okay, I don't know how that... Okay, all right. Okay, all right. But I'm still trying to figure out, God is not in control and he doesn't cause all things, yet God premeditated everything to come out a certain way and it's going to work out that way. And God was in with this person, this person, this person, this person. But was he controlling and causing, or was he just passively watching?
This is the day the Lord hath made. The Bible tells us. Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. Folks, revivals, like revivals ought to be, are not relics of the past. They're not. Today, the power of God's available. Today, victory can be had. I mean, we don't have to live in the throes of defeat. We don't have to, have our chin hanging to our shoelaces every hour of the day or night.
Now, do we have victory because of us and we pull it off? Or do we have victory of God? And if God is the one causing the victory, is he causing it? Is he controlling it? But God is not in control, and God doesn't cause all things to happen. Is that just our like, hey, something bad happened, God was not in control and God did not cause it, but God can intervene? Like I don't. All right.
God is in heaven. God is still in today and available to us when we need him, when we want him, whenever we need to have his presence with us. Not only that, but verse 14 tells me that God is in a very powerful way. It says, thou art the God that doest wonders. And that word wonders it's like miracles. It's like God demonstrating himself in a powerful kind of a way, in a supernatural kind of a way. You know, we get all enamored with atomic power and some of the things that go on with that stuff. Every time I get on an airplane, I mean, you know, I have flown over the years, many hundreds and hundreds of flights, and I'm telling you, I can't help it. Every time I get on an airplane, whether it's a 737, which is what I fly on most of the time, or something else, and they put 175 people in that thing or more in bigger planes, and all of them with luggage, oh my, luggage, baggage. I mean, people are dragging so much stuff onto the plane. I mean, we got to have one of this and two of that and got to take it with us. And I'm the same way. You got all of that weight. They pull that thing back. And I mean, any number of times I've said, is this thing going to fly? You know, but I studied just a little bit and I figured out, I mean, you put the throttle to that thing, it doesn't have any choice. It's got to fly. And just the theory, the philosophy of aerodynamics, it's got to fly. But sometimes when that thing's heavily loaded and it's picking up speed and it's up to 100 miles an hour and 180 miles an hour and whatever to take off, and all at once that thing starts going and lumbering up, you know, oh my! I mean we're enamored with that. I just can't imagine that we could get that heavy thing up there, and I'm even more amazed they can get it on the ground safely. But I'm telling you, that, like a lot of other things, is a gift of God. It's a gift from God to us.
So it's a gift of God. So God is not in control. God does not cause all things, but he gives gifts to bring about all things, but then wouldn't he not be the ultimate cause of those things? Like, if God is giving gifts to men so that we can develop flight, then God would be the ultimate cause for flight because he's the one who gave the gift for man to be able to develop that. So is that not God causing it? I am so confused. Like, when you tell everyone God does not control all things and God does not cause all things, I would feel that the rest of the sermon would need to be all about what God does not cause and what God does not control. And then what God does cause and what God does control.
And all of it, I mean, it lays the power of God into our lap. I mean, this whole world and the way it functions, I mean, absolutely testimony to the Almighty. God is in. He's in today, and he's in a powerful way.
So wait, everything about the planet and all thing around us, that's God? So God is causing it or controlling it? Does God control everything to keep the planet operating? I don't understand. What does God not cause or control then? Like, on one hand, God does not control everything, cause all things, but it sounds like everything else is God. That
13th verse says that he's in the sanctuary. Well, in the Old Testament, he was in a place. New Testament era, he's in the believer. He's in us. We're never alone, folks. I mean, the heat may be on, but we're never alone. We may have critics, but we're never alone. We may not be able to pay our rent, but we're never alone. We may not be feeling well, but we're not alone. If we are born again, the Spirit of God comes to dwell in us, live within us. God is in. He's right there. Dark of the night, light of the day. He's in. The sanctuary. We are the sanctuary. We're occupied. We're inhabited. I think about some of the times, quite a number of years ago now, when Betty and I walked out of the denominational group that we were attached to become independent Baptists. We walked out on the street with nobody in this crowd at that point who knew us, and the people in the other crowd were kicking us as we went. And I walked out with a house payment and car payments and 2 kids and a dog to feed. And you say, what's the deal? God was in. God was in. He saw us through. He got us through.
So God doesn't control all things. God doesn't cause all things, but He jumped in and helped cause and control.
Got us out and got us in where we needed to be. God has helped us all along the way. I think about so many times when God has just let Himself be known. It's like, hey, you're not alone, buddy. Just hang in there. Sometimes, things maybe get a little crossways and you start looking at something, and before you open your mouth and say something you ought not to say, or something pops within your viewfinder, and it's like, rather than looking at things you ought not to look at, you remind there's somebody living inside of you. You're not alone. God is there. And it reminds you, it strengthens you, it enables you to make the turns that you need to make. And look away or not pay attention to whatever is happening. Not only that, but verse 15 tells me that God is in and mighty to save. That 15th verse says, thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people. Listen, I'm telling you, we guys, we like to flex our muscle a little bit. My grandchildren come around and grab me by the arm, and I look at them. I say, "Hey, don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself." When they grab hold of that, it's got to be that kind of a story and a joke. Now then, if I walk up and grab one of them by the arm, they'll say that to me. Smart kids, but anyway, we talk about our little dab of strength, and it's nothing compared to what God does when He finds a sinner. And it doesn't have to be somebody who's down in the dregs of life. It can be some little boy, just 9 or 10 years of age, and as we would say, still in the emergence from innocence, but nonetheless a sinner, nonetheless.
Children have a state of innocence, but yet still a sinner? If you're a sinner, you can't be innocent. This must be the age of accountability concept. I'm not even as baffled by that. I'm still confused by God does not control everything. God does not cause everything, but He's having God involved in everything. So I don't understand. And God, when God finds a sinner, is God the one doing the saving? Or it would have to be us, or because if you say God controls and causes salvation, well, then now you're following. Then they would have to go move towards a reformed understanding of salvation. You would have to move to a monergistic understanding of salvation. And clearly, I know they believe in a synergistic type. Clearly, I know they do.
As somebody that needs to be saved, whether a little boy or a little girl or some grown man or woman, whether it be somebody who's in a position of high power or somebody who's walking the streets without a dime to their name, it does not matter. God is able. God is mighty to save those who come to Him.
God is able, but does God do it or does man do it? God does not control all things. He doesn't cause all things, but does He control and cause salvation? Or no?
Jesus came to get sinners saved. Our job is to get sinners saved. I mean, we're commanded to go after sinners. It's the heartbeat of God to get folks to the Savior. All through the Bible we see it. God making the appeal to folks to come to the Savior. I mean, what an unchanging mandate we have. In these days when so many churches are getting off the rails, so many churches are heading off in some accommodation to the woke culture, some accommodation to whatever the polls demand. You and I, our mandate has not changed. I mean, we still have that command to go after folks, reach folks. You say, what folks? All folks. If they're breathing, we need to be after them. Amen. God says He is in, and His mighty arm is able to redeem.
Now, I'm going to stop right there because we're at 64 minutes. Please look up the rest of that sermon. There's probably about 10 minutes of it left, maybe. God is in, Dr. Shelton Smith. You can find it on the Sermons 2.0 app. But I'm going to leave you with kind of the question. Are you on the team that says, are you on the theological side that says God is in control of all things and God causes all things? Either directly or indirectly utilizing secondary cause. Again, you can read the Westminster Confession, London Baptist Confession of Faith, and you can look at the chapters on God's decrees and God's providence. So are you on the side that says God controls all things and causes all things? Or are you on the side that says God does not control all things and God does not cause all things? First, determine which side you are on, and then I want you to ask yourself, what philosophical problems, theological problems do you face on the basis of the side that you have chosen? Now look, each side has its problems. If you say God controls all things and causes all things, well, you got to see some problems, right? Now, I understand the Westminster and London Baptist. They try to say, well, God uses secondary causes. So God is not the direct cause. So well, there's sin or death or this. Well, God doesn't directly cause it, but He uses Satan or He does that. Okay, well then, but God is the one who created Satan. So that to me is just kind of like a semantics game we play. But the bottom line is you do realize it's going to lead you to some philosophical problems. If God controls all things and causes all things, there's a lot of horrible things that happen every single day in this world and has happened throughout the history of humankind. Where was God? Why would God do this? That's a reasonable question and challenge. If you say God does not control all things, He does not cause all things, well, now you've got, well, wait a minute. If God is not in control and God is not causing it, then these things are operating independently of God. Then is God God if there are things running around independent of Him? He's not sovereign. He's not, I mean, what do you call something that's outside of the control of God? Look, that just seems to raise all kinds of problems. And then if God is not in control of all things or cause all things, then God is limited in what He can do because He doesn't control that. He's not causing that. So then when can God step in or not step in? If those things are outside of His control, then God can't interject or He would be controlling. That leaves all kinds of questions about even the existence of God. Is there more than one God? There's all kinds of problems with that. So there you have it. God is in, Dr. Shelton Smith. His hypothesis is God is not in charge of all things. Or God is not in charge of all things, and God does not cause all things. God is not in control, I should say, of all things, and He does not cause all things, using His words. That's his hypothesis. He does not articulate his hypotheses. He doesn't explain it. He doesn't defend it. He doesn't justify it. In fact, the rest of the sermon seems to almost contradict what he said, but that's irrelevant. It's no longer about Dr. Shelton Smith. It's no longer about that preaching conference. I want you to go listen to that preaching conference. I subscribe to Dr. Shelton Smith's podcast. We would obviously have a disagreement here, but it's not about him. It's not about him. It's about this concept. Is God in control? And does God cause all things? Is he in control of all things? And does he cause all things? Well, look, these sides cannot both be right. There can only be one that's right. God is either in control and causes, or God is not in control and doesn't cause. And then you have to deal with the philosophical fallout of that. I would love to get your thoughts. You can email me, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. Please look up that message, God is In by Dr. Shelton Smith. Please listen to the rest of it. If there's something there that you're like, oh, you missed it. He completely explains at the end, then let me know. Let me know ASAP. Let me know ASAP, okay? Let me know. All right. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a good night. God bless.